Hello there. Sorry, I'm a few minutes late. I've just come off a webinar, so hopefully you haven't been waiting too long. Apologies also for the funny lighting. I'm away from my usual setup, so I don't have the best desk studio environment, but nonetheless, I hope you can see me and hear me okay. I'll give you a few minutes to hop on in case people are trying to join live. So first of all, I'm really happy to be back. My name is Anna Lundberg. I know there are lots of new members here in the group, so I'm thrilled to have you here in the One Step Outside group. One Step Outside is all about creating a business and building a lifestyle that brings you all those wonderful Fs: freedom, flexibility, fulfillment, and why not add family time, financial freedom, and fun. So all the F's in life. And I know these are things that certainly mean a lot to me, and I think mean a lot, or I know mean a lot to a lot of you as well. So first of all, I was out. Do say hello when you're joining so I know who's watching. Apologies for last week, sort of semi-live that I did. As you may have seen, I was out sailing last week. Bucket list, number 60 on my bucket list. I just checked it. I wrote a list of 100 things I wanted to do before I died 5 years ago. So while I was back in 2013, I took a sabbatical before I actually decided to quit my corporate job. And during that trip, I watched the Bucket List film with Morgan Freeman and Jack Nicholson. If you haven't seen that, I definitely encourage you to watch it. It's a great film. I think I watched it in Spanish in South America. But the idea was that you write a list of things you want to do before you kick the bucket. And I must admit, I haven't been looking at this so much recently because at the time I was in my comfort zone. I hadn't been doing a lot of travel, adventure, and sort of out of my comfort zone things in a long time. So this adventure list really, and a lot of it was adventures and travels, served to really get me out of that comfort zone and get me doing lots of crazy things. Since then, I feel like I do quite a lot of crazy things anyway, so I no longer need that list. Hi, Christina, great to see you. I'm just talking about my bucket list. It's actually one of the most visited blog posts on my website as well still. So I've got a list of 100 things to do. There's still plenty of things I need to check off. But the good news is number 60, get my sailing license. I'm very nearly there. I do still need to complete the theory test, which is an online exam, very complicated. But I have now passed the practical, so really excited about that. It was a bit of a difficult decision because, as you may have seen, and as I'll tell you about in a moment, there is a lot going on work-wise. But if you've been part of my community for a while, you'll know that, and as I introduced at the beginning of the session as well, for me, this is all about reimagining success beyond the narrow confines of work. We've left behind, or we're trying to leave behind, this sort of stressful burnout world where we're hustling, and we don't want to then jump straight into this sort of entrepreneurial hustle world and make the same mistakes. So for me, it's incredibly important to find that balance in the different areas of your life and to make sure you're prioritizing that. So hopefully I'm role modeling that. It's not always easy, but the good news is I got very organized with my work before heading off. And the wonderful Sophia, who you may have met here in the group, who was supporting me. And now, of course, I'm back in the game. So the most exciting news, hopefully for you as well as for me, is that we are just today 2 weeks away from my birthday. No, that's not the news. It's 2 weeks away from the launch of my book, which is on Wednesday, the 3rd of October. Leaving the corporate 9-to-5, stories from people who've done it and how you can too. And first of all, I want to say thank you so much for everyone who's been incredibly supportive. I know several of you who've reached out already and said that you're really looking forward to reading it. And I'm so excited, so thrilled that this is the response it's getting. And because I really do think this is going to be such a source of inspiration and reassurance for you. These very diverse stories of people who've left behind a diverse range of different jobs as well, at different stages of their lives. This week, you may have seen on the blog, we're talking about it's never too late to change career. And some of the stories in there are perhaps some slightly older, more mature individuals, people with babies, on maternity leave, with children at home, renovating their houses, lots of savings, no savings, all these different scenarios, single, married, and so on. So hopefully it's going to give you a range of cases, not because you should be copying any of these particular paths, but you should be reassured that there are all these different alternatives and that whatever you choose to envision for yourself is definitely possible, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But that's coming out in 2 weeks' time. If you haven't already, you can sign up to the waiting list at leavingthecorporate9to5.com. And of course, as you can imagine, I'll be posting lots here as well in the coming weeks. On the actual launch day, I think I posted the event. I will be live lots with sort of sneak previews of the book and giving away copies, of course, and doing Q&As and so on. So if you are around sometime on Wednesday the 3rd, then by all means do pop in and say hi and join me when I'm live, and see if you might be able to win a copy of the book as well. So, but that's exciting. And around that, of course, we're continuing on this topic of leaving the 9 to 5. There will be a challenge coming up here in the group. We love a good challenge, don't we? A 5-day challenge to help you to take sort of what you may have read in the book seriously, and to really take action on your own business idea. So more news to come on that too. But I will keep tonight short. I have, as I said, just been on a webinar. I've almost lost my voice anyway. And looks like we don't have a massively busy room this evening, so I'll try to keep it short. But on the topic of this week, as I said, we were looking at why it's never too late to change career. And I've given some examples. Colonel Sanders franchised KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken, when he was 62 apparently, and sold it for many millions just a few years later. John Grisham, great author. I used to read all his thrillers. I think my dad's a fan too. He, of course, was a lawyer first and only published his book. Now, I want to say 49, I think he was. Julia Child, you may have seen the film or read the book, Julie and Julia. She had a long and fruitful career in government intelligence and advertising and all sorts, and then wrote her first book and became a celebrity chef age 49. Vera Wang, all these different sort of LinkedIn, Wikipedia founders, even Jeff Bezos and so on, have had various careers actually over time, and found success in later life. And I'm sure you can find many other examples as well. So all those famous examples, but also, as I said, in the book, there are lots of real life human stories of real people, not celebrities, although celebrities must be human beings as well. Real life people who are overcoming these fears, deciding that their vision is more important than whatever their concerns are, and then finding a way to make that happen. Some with more success than others, depending on what you define as success. It may take longer, depending on the amount of savings you have, depending on how much time you have to dedicate to it, how committed you are, the support you get, and so on. But certainly it's very, very possible if it's something you want to do. So based on that, what I wanted to touch on this evening was the real reason which is stopping you from acting. Underneath the, oh, I can't because I'm too old. By the way, the I'm too old comes from people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. I know we have a couple of retirees here, and I'd love for you, if you are watching at some point, if you watch the replay, to jump in and tell us all about your businesses. Certainly there's one lady, Monica, in my book, who has had all sorts of different careers since the 70s, and I think now finally in sort of mid-70s has retired, but certainly has had lots of pivots along the way. And so lots of real world stories there. And as I said, the age, it's all relative, and we can all make that excuse, to be honest, but you'll always be able to find evidence to disprove that. So that's something to bear in mind. I think, and certainly this is what I've heard from you all in the group, and it's also what I've seen in my clients, what I've heard from people in the stories in the book, and to be perfectly honest, what I've experienced myself, is all the fears, right? We are afraid, ultimately. We are afraid of failing, whatever that means. We're afraid of making mistakes that maybe can't be corrected, ruining our career forever. We're afraid of not earning enough money. We're afraid of looking foolish, being judged by other people, letting people down, and making the wrong choice, and so on. And this is incredibly important. And an interesting nuance is that when I started this interview series, I called it Fearless Fridays. And it was sort of intended, again, to be honest, at the beginning, I did this for my own selfish reasons to motivate me to make these changes. But I wanted to every week have this sort of focus, Fearless Fridays, I think it was once a month actually, to get out of that comfort zone, to get that oomph and to take those steps. And that certainly for me really helped me to speak to these people. It's been my favorite part of the last few years, has been meeting people like you all, working through these sort of different situations really, and coming to grips with your vision and then making that happen. So it's not about being fearless actually. It's more about being courageous, because we will always have these fears. To be honest, they never completely go away. I can say now, after 5 years, they've certainly quietened down. I may have some doubts now and then, but certainly there's no longer that sort of manic, desperate sort of search of job sites and so on. I'm certainly, for the foreseeable future, very happy with the way things are going, what I'm working on, working, you know, hard, but as I said in the introduction as well, trying to balance all my personal goals and fun and health and well-being and all these things as well. So certainly I'm not looking back, and for me, this is the path that I'm following. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. If you're struggling, you will get to a point if you keep going. And I'm a big believer now that persistence, to keep going, is going to be the biggest success driver for you. 99% of people, I've made up that statistic, are going to give up. So simply by continuing, by doing the work, by being consistent, by showing up, by persisting, you are going to be in the top 1%. You are going to be successful. It may not look exactly as you'd intended. You may need to pivot with your business idea. You may need to get help, you know, whatever it is. But certainly it's going to be possible eventually. So hopefully that's not too negative. But all that to say that these fears are very real, and it's important to deal with them. Now, the book actually looks at 5 different categories of career transitions. And the first one is changing to a different sector. And I think in a way that's sort of the most comfortable change. It's still scary because it's a totally new industry. We don't have the network necessarily. We might feel like we don't have the skills. However, we're still keeping a lot of the parameters the same. It's still, you know, full-time employer, stable salary, pension, and so on. It might be a little bit less if we're moving to non-profit, for example. But certainly that could be a nice transition that gives you sort of the more meaningful work you're after, without necessarily pulling the rug from underneath you in terms of, you know, the income and so on. Should you be perhaps a single mother who's you know, has dependents and so on. So changing sector, I think, is quite a sort of easier transition if you're not quite ready, or if you don't want to sort of actually go out into the world completely. The others are going freelance and launching your own business. Going freelance, again, I think if nothing else, is a fantastic transition. It's a great sort of quick win to hit the ground running. Freelancing, consulting, coaching even. You don't need a massive investment to get things up and running. You don't need a big team, technologies, tools, and so on. You just need to be able to talk to people, build relationships and work with them and so on. So if nothing else, even if you have another vision for sort of your future business, it's certainly a great way to transition gradually out of the 9-to-5 structure, have more flexibility and freedom while you perhaps build your business. Launch your own business, I have to say, I'm a little bit biased, but I really do believe it is the best way to get all that freedom, flexibility, fulfillment. We can earn more money than we did as an employee. It really is the best way to get all these things we want. However, it will take more time. We need to invest time, money. It's going to take at least a couple of years to get things off the ground really sustainably and so on. So that's something, you know, in the meantime, we do need either to be working through our savings buffer, which can be scary in itself, or we do need money coming in. The next category is having a portfolio career, which I have, and I think some of you guys do too. And it's a really, actually, again, sort of safer choice in a way, because you're combining potentially freelancing, consulting in your existing skill set where you have your experience with perhaps a new development. So in my case, marketing, consulting, and so on in the early years while I was building my coaching business. And then finally, and in the context of fear, this is perhaps the most important one, there is a big section on people who've simply taken a leap of faith. And I must admit that I did that too, although I landed for various reasons with a bit of luck and a fantastic network on my feet. But some people just get to the point where either their body gives out, they're made redundant, by the way, it's not always in our own control, or they've just thought enough is enough. I just cannot do this anymore, even though I don't know what else I want to do, or I just need to do this now or never. And I had this discussion with a client earlier today, actually, that you know, you have that choice of building the side hustle alongside your full-time job, which means you have the safety and you know, you have the income coming in while you're building the business. On the other hand, you don't have the pressure because you're in that comfort zone, you still have that money coming in, and you also don't have a lot of time and energy to build your business. On the other hand, if you take the leap, you have all the time in the world, you have no money coming in, and however euphoric and wonderful you might feel when you first quit, very quickly that panic is going to set in, and you're going to get more concerned about there not being any money. You'll find yourself back on those job sites and so on, and you'll be distracted from doing what you needed to do. So it's very important to have some kind of structure, support system to keep you on track there. So those are the different options, from changing sector, going freelance, launching a business, creating some kind of combination of these in a portfolio career, and then taking a leap of faith. Throughout all of this, though, as I said, we are going to be experiencing fear. Fear of failure is the big one. For fear of failure, well, in fact, I want to talk through 3 different aspects really and how you can address this. And I've written about this at length, and I'd love to share a few articles with you. But certainly it's a topic that's never going to die out, because it's such an important one. But I think there are 3 important elements when we're addressing the fear of failure, fear of making mistakes, and so on. So the first one is having a clear vision of what it is you want instead and why that's so important to you. So an understanding of your core values. You value freedom, time with your children, health, well-being, making a difference in the world, whatever that is. So as granular as possible. You don't want to be working more than X hours a day. You want to have the time and energy to be with your young children. You want to be able to travel the world, whatever that is. You need a very compelling vision, not just, I don't want to be doing this, but you need a clear idea of what you want to be doing instead. At least the parameters of that. So it doesn't have to be an exact job description, but really that sort of North Star of what your vision is for your life, for your big picture, professional, personal life vision, really, because that's going to keep you motivated when the going inevitably gets tough. It's going to keep you being consistent, committed, persistent, and it's going to make sure that you actually overcome that fear, because your vision of your future life is going to be more important to you than the fear. Yes, this is scary, but oh my goodness, it's going to be so worth it. So number 1 is your vision. Number 2, and perhaps arguably most importantly, and certainly something I didn't deal with so much before getting into coaching, is mindset. So a lot of this fear is mindset, and it's a lot of, we talk about limiting beliefs. So in the context of fear of failure, for example, and this concern around money, there are lots of beliefs there, which we've inherited from our parents, from the baby boomer generation, perhaps, from society, from our friends, and from our own experiences, our own sort of stories. In terms of a full-time job is more stable and secure than working for myself. I can never earn a lot of money working for myself. Freelancing is always going to be feast or famine. I can never have a stable income. I'm not entrepreneurial. Having your own business is risky. Working isn't supposed to be fun. All these things, and you can see in some of them you may believe, and you'll say, you know what, that's a fact, but no, they're not facts, they're beliefs, and I could give you all sorts of evidence to disprove them, just as you might be able to find evidence to sort of justify them as well. But the point is, you can choose to believe these things, or you can choose to look out into the world at these examples of people who've changed career late in life, who found success, who've made it happen. So, you know, questioning those beliefs is incredibly important. And also questioning what failure really means. Because and that's why the vision is so important. If success for me is having a prestigious job title, having the beautiful car and big house, the salary, the pension, you know, big name company on my business card and so on, then yes, leaving that behind is going to mean failure. However, I think for many of us at least, that's not our definition of success. And if my definition of success is I want to be location independent, I want to be able to choose what I work on and when, I want to be able to travel, I want to be able to go off and do a sailing course and write and you know, love my work and make what I think is a difference in the world, then that gives you a very different perspective on what success is and what failure is as well. And so I'd encourage you really to challenge, on the one hand, your underlying beliefs, and on the other hand, what is this definition of success? Whose definition is it? And the corollary of that, the failure as well. Who is saying that this is failure? Yes, you know, there is that fear of other people being judgmental of you. I found that people who love you will understand. They might be a little bit nervous in the short term. You might need to sort of incubate your ideas and keep it to yourself a little bit. Your parents, your partner, your immediate friends might, well, definitely will care about you. They'll want what's best for you, and they may even be a little bit concerned because you kind of questioning your role in the world and so on, professionally and personally, of course, could potentially both affect your relationship with them, but also affect their own identity and so on, and make them question things. So it can be quite scary for them. So have some empathy for that as well. But mindset, really important. So number one, vision. Number two, mindset. And number three, for all this beautiful envisioning and mindset and so on, the reality is money is an important piece of the puzzle. Now, whatever your situation, when I quit, and many of the people in the book perhaps were in this situation too, I was single, I didn't have a mortgage, I didn't have children or dogs or anything like that. And it was very easy for me to sort of pack up my stuff into storage. I could stay with family, I went off and traveled, and I had a big savings buffer from work. Because the reality is, as I said, whether it's certainly starting a business is going to take a couple of years to get that off the ground, have sustainable income coming in. Even with something that I said was a quick win in terms of freelancing or consulting and so on, you won't necessarily get 10 clients tomorrow, and you could have 10 tomorrow and none next week. That is certainly the initial experience that a lot of us have as freelancers. And so you are going to need, first of all, a substantial savings buffer if you're going to take that leap, or you're going to need income coming in. So that's why either continuing with your full-time job and then trying to build a business as a side hustle alongside that, or potentially quitting, having the freelancing consulting as I did, and then building the brand alongside of that. But it is an important practical consideration. So number one, get super clear on your vision. That's going to really drive you, motivate you, and help you overcome your fears. Number two, unpick those fears. Look at what is the worst case scenario. If someone judges you, the stranger on the street or a colleague or whatever it is, does that matter? Is that important to you? What's a bigger failure? Is the failure to never have tried actually this, to have regrets? The top one regret of the dying is, I wish I'd lived a life that was true to who I was and not the life that other people expected of me. So that's something to think about. We might not want to end up with that regret later in life. So what is the worst case scenario? What is failure? What is success? And then finally, sit down and really work out a concrete plan. How much money do I need? What are my expenses? What do I need coming in? What do I need to cover to make sure that my family obligations, aren't put at unnecessary risk, and don't want to have sort of precarious situation for your children, for your partner, and so on. Work out the parameters. And actually, even if it's a difficult situation, I think really putting those numbers black on white is going to help you to overcome that fear and build your confidence, because you'll actually have a number to work with. You can either then say, it's not possible, which is a very empowering decision. You can put it on hold for the next year, let's say, and reassess. Or you can say, if I cut down on this, if I do that, if I, find a way to get this number of clients, then I will actually meet those goals. So in summary, when you're saying it's too late for me or whatever your sort of excuse is, and apologies for calling it an excuse, but I think really it is an excuse rather than a reason, try to dig underneath that and think, what is it that you're really worried about? And I think it's going to be things like fear of failure, of making the wrong choice, of not succeeding, and so on. And that's where these three elements really come in. Number one, get clear on that big vision that's going to motivate you to overcome your fears. Number two, break down your mindset, your limiting beliefs, and question, the worst case scenario and what is success and failure. And number three, put together a concrete plan, upskill in whatever area you need, work with a coach, find a structured program to guide you through it, do what you need to do to save the money, and so on and so on. So hopefully that's helpful. Hopefully you'll be watching this as a replay, in which case do comment, say hi, and of course I'll come back and answer any questions or respond to your comments in the meantime. But I hope, in the context of all of this, and as we will be talking over the next few weeks about leaving the corporate 9 to 5, this has given you a little bit to think about, and to begin to question perhaps, and to ask yourself, if not now, when? And maybe this is the moment that actually I'm going to go for this now. I'm going to give it a go, and I'm going to make this happen in this coming year. And you know what? If it doesn't work out, first of all, it probably will. It just will work out in a different way to perhaps what you expected. But if it doesn't, the worst case scenario is I will have tried, and I'll feel amazing, because something great will have come of it in some format. It always does. So hopefully that's left you a little bit reassured and inspired. Hoping to see you again here next week. 8 o'clock again, Facebook Live here in the group every week. And then I'll probably have some news, of course, about the book, and also about our upcoming Facebook challenge. But in the meantime, again, I know there are lots of new members here, so if you have any questions, things you'd like me to cover, any particular topics or so on, then do let me know. I'll be happy to create a specific training or share a blog post or whatever it is. So thanks so much for watching. Hopefully see you soon and have a wonderful rest of the week. I'll see you back in the group very soon. Bye for now.